Actively managing your personal brand is critical if you want to make a significant impact in the areas of your life important to you. I've spent most of my life working in the world of branding products. More recently, I've been exploring the world of personal branding and wrote a book on this, Brand New, Brand You. And the podcast has come out of this as a way to share first-hand experiences from some of Australia's most recognised personal brands. Tim recently retired after 10 years as Chair of the NRMA, shareholder and advisor to Quantium, Australia's leading data and analytics company, is an author of a new book, A Game On, and holds interests in several private, high-growth, innovative companies. He is an authority on how to use information and technology to drive innovation for corporate strategy and for a better society. His core interest relates to the role of directors to create good governance for the service of customers and the community. Tim, it's terrific to have you here today, and it's great to catch up with you again. It's been a little time, but I thought what we'd do is start talking about our own personal brand and how we've actually developed over time. You've had many leadership roles. You've had a career in so many different aspects of life. Do you see yourself as a brand? Is it something that you've thought about in terms of building up your the awareness and reputation you have as an individual?
Well, it's very nice to be here, Gary, and nice to see you and regroup and have a conversation with you. I think as time's gone by, I have begun to think much more about that. But I'd probably answer the question by saying most of my career, it was much more accidental in a way. But it's probably driven, if there is a brand off the back of what I've been doing, it is probably just through some sort of consistency and showing up as Tim, effectively, because that's all you can be. You can only be yourself, and I don't try and be anyone else because that's just too exhausting, and I don't have the energy for it. So, if you're consistent and that resonates in some shape or form, then I guess that does establish some sort of brand. That's what a brand is. It turns up and looks like it did yesterday, and that's what I've tried to do because. That just comes kind of naturally to me, and I think it really comes back to, quite frankly, my wonderful parents who really just taught me, treat everybody fairly, have empathy, have curiosity, and if you got those two things, everything's probably going to turn out okay.
Well, I think you've turned out okay.
Depends who you ask.
But with your different hats that you've put on during your career and in life generally, have you ever thought about how people perceive you? Because it's one thing to show up, it's another thing to be consistent, but it's also got to do with the way you act, behave, present and project.
I think it's really about trying not to be surprising. I try and act the same. Doesn't matter, if it's whoever it is, I will try and be the same person because I don't want to do anything else. And I don't know if that's luck or, just how I feel. And I think that's made it relatively easy to be consistent and straightforward with people. And what I do try and do is try and understand the context of, if someone's agitated around me, well, I think that's the time to get curious and say, well, have I done something that's caused that agitation, or is it the person's, got something going on for them? To not take it all personally, because, I think a lot of the situations when you see around us, like just, you roaming through the city this morning, there was lots of stuff going on. There was sirens everywhere. There's ambulance. Somebody's having a really bad day out there. I don't know who it is, but something terrible's happening. And if you bump into that person this afternoon, well, their world's in a different place than yours.
Absolutely.
And you need to understand what's going on for them, or at least have some empathy for their situation.
That's the essence of good leadership. is having the empathy for the other person and being consistent and being able to really assist and project yourself in a way that you can add value to that person that you are leading or supporting and helping. But I think at times you talked about surprise, not being surprised or surprising others. How does that fit when you go and put on a gig and become a drummer as opposed to being the chairman of the NRMA? I mean, people have got to regroup and recalibrate their mindset about Tim, haven't they?
That is a very interesting thing you just said, Gary, because that's probably been, that does surprise people, actually.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me because, I've been playing the drums since I was 15. I've been lucky enough to play with these wonderful friends, and we've been playing for 40 years all over the world, which is incredible joy. But yeah, when people see you as the chairman of some big business, they don't expect you to also be playing the drums in a rock and roll band. But for me, of course, it's just not a surprise at all. So that's fun to watch that reaction with people. But, funnily enough, I think music is actually another way of, it's ultimately, it's free-form collaboration is what it is. So, with these guys I've been playing with, it is almost like a conversation. Like I can predict what they will do and they can predict what I will do. And in a way, it is a bit like a management group or even a board in how it operates. I suppose what you're saying is, when I reflect on what you're saying, they have tagged you as your role, and so that role may not compute to rock and roll drummer. I actually don't know how you backfill that because you may not want the chairman turning up with chains around their neck and, things through their nose or whatever. But I think you can actually do both roles well because you just apply the situation. Like the situation requires this kind of behaviour for the board to work, and the drumming, you've got to have your whole mind in both, actually. They're both complicated.
So let me put it to you another way,
Sure.
That your musical talent and the complement to your chairmanship is a demonstration of your authenticity, of you being you, and that you apply your talent to the situation at that moment in time. And I actually think it's a terrific enhancement of your personal brand. That's my personal view. And so it actually plays to the point that you made about being consistent, but actually showing who you are, because you only can be who you are, and it just so happens you're a musician as well. And so I actually think it's a really positive strength, as opposed to someone who is just focusing on nothing more than the job they do, which is as chairman, for which that's their identity, and the identity of that individual can work against them because the day they don't have that job is the day they have a challenge. Whereas strings to your bow give you that option.
That's very kind. Your answer was much better than mine, Gary.
No, I'm not you, but that's from an outsider's perspective. But I think it's a really interesting dynamic, and I think some people struggle to actually declare those sort of things. They tend to keep them behind. And the fact you're so authentic, you don't hide these things.
No, there's one thing I'd add to that. I think I try to be conscious as you enter something, like as entering the role as chairman of the NRMA. I'm really conscious that one day you won't be, and that all of these things are transient, and one day I won't be able to play the drums, and that will be a bad day. But none of these things will go forever, and you need to be cognizant of that as you start them, which I actually think takes you to, and again, if you'd asked me this question when I was 30, I would have gone, that's a terrible answer, but it actually takes you to legacy and what do you want to be remembered for. And I think that is really worth thinking about at the start, not at the end, at the start, because it clarifies what am I here to do and it clarifies in your own self, I won't be doing this forever, so I'm now going to try and maximise what I'm doing with my time now.
And how many young people do that?
Yeah, I would never have thought about that when I was
Neither
young.
would I. No.
And I don't know why that is, but when I was young, I'd never, ever thought about it. And I probably should have, because I think it powers you up. You know, if you're out there listening to this and you're 25 and you think I'm going to do this for the next 3 years and then I won't be doing it, think about, well, how would you like, when you're, 50, how would you like to reflect on that time? And, what would the people 5 years later say about you? I think it's a powerful thing.
So following on from that, we talk about reputation. Is that something that's played on your mind or something that you think about or have thought about over time?
Yeah, I've definitely thought about it. There were some pivotal moments in the career where, when you start to do those management 360s, which I had a kind of terrible experience with that when I was much, much younger. And I really did learn a lot. It wasn't good. It was a long time ago. And I actually thought I was sort of a bit harshly judged and all that, but it just got me reflecting on what happened. But, I learnt a lot, actually. I learnt a lot about how others saw me. I had some really good coaches, and my wife's an executive coach, and, she'll hate hearing this, but she desperately tries not to coach me and doesn't, but her voices are in my ear a lot, and I've learnt a lot from her. And so I've modified my behaviour a lot over the years. And I remember, years later, I did another 360 at London Business College, and I came up in the top 1%. And it was through a period of change when the business was changing a lot. I was the CEO of the business, and we were changing a lot. So you expect through change to get a bad result, really, but it was a really good result. And I was really surprised on the upside. And I think it was I'd obviously learnt to change my behaviour and reflect on what I was bringing to the leadership table a lot. And I was proud of that, actually. And I think that served me well. Probably getting, getting a bit of a slap in the face as a young person and then being able to course correct is probably helpful.
Very much so. We have to be all told at a point in time that things aren't right and you better lift your game. But so was that the pivotal moment of when reputation became important? Or were there other moments in your life, career, where you realised reputation is something I've got to be far more cognizant of?
Well, I'm a massive Warren Buffett fan, and I've read a lot of biographies on Warren Buffett, and his famous line, which I'm sure you've heard 100 times, about it takes 20 years to build a reputation, it takes 20 seconds to ruin it. That is a strong statement and has deep gravitational impact. So I've always been conscious of that you just need to be on the right side of staying with good behaviour and good values and showing up around the boardroom table or the executive suite with good intention and with care for what you're doing and the people around you.
Critical, which is the essence of good leadership too, huh?
And I'm sure there's times when I get it wrong.
We all do.
And it's a hard thing. It's always hard under pressure, isn't it? Like pressure's the moment, like when things go wrong.
Under pressure, it really tests the talent.
Yeah. There's a great line I heard someone say that you only ever know if directors are good is they're like tea bags. It's only when the water's hot do you know if they're any good.
What, as to whether they're pulled out or not? It comes back, reputation, it's actually one thing to protect, another thing to think about what other people think of you, which comes back to how people perceive you. from my perspective, I used to grow up thinking about what other people think of me as opposed to going and doing what I thought was right. Because if you take the opinion of too many people, you're going to have different views. But reputation actually solidifies that position. It's all part of the personal brand. It's all part of trying to project a strong presence, which takes us on to the components of values. Because one thing to have a reputation, another thing, how your values. Do you have you thought about what your values are? Are they something that you clearly can articulate? Is it something you've worked on?
You know how organisations have their values and those things are really clear. Well, they should be clear. Yeah, I don't have that as such for myself. You know, I want to be at peace with myself, basically. And I know what the kind of behaviour that won't bring me peace is the kind of behaviour that is at odds with my values. And I'm old enough now to just go, I don't want to do anything that is going to disrupt my sleep or my peace. And so I just don't allow that to happen. And it's quite clarifying, actually.
I always used to be taught be able to put your head on the pillow at night and sleep.
Yeah. So, you know.
Metaphorically and physically as well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, you know, it's another Warren Buffett line, but, you know, he says a good idea should scream, and it should. And a bad idea also screams. And I'm fortunate. I'm not in the room with people with bad ideas. But every now and then I've seen situations go, well, that bad idea would have been screaming. And it's now a conscious decision to just walk out of that room or not. And I think you want to be really clear in your own mind about what sort of things are just no-go areas. And I'm clear about that.
And are you talking in a business sense?
Yeah.
And what about in a personal sense? When, you know, the values and in my book I talk about where values, where behaviours and people's perception of you intersect is actually when you've got outstanding credibility, authenticity, etc. When we talk about values of our personal values, what we hold dear to us, and our beliefs as opposed to our values, and your behaviours, sometimes they become out of sync and that causes grief. But in a personal sense, you mentioned earlier about, you know, your parents taught you good practices and brought you up with certain values, etc. Is that when it became something of importance, or was it school, or was it something that came to you or came across you that sort of said, I've got to have my own values? Or
Yeah. You know, I think that's all true. I think it comes back to, it's the same point. It's like the conscience you have, you know, that voice in your head. Someone said the voice in your head talks to you like 300 words a minute or 400 words a minute, and you can only talk like 150. So it's always going to outgun you. And what is it saying to you? That voice in my head is really clear. It's just saying these things are going to be fine. These things are not going to be fine. And yeah, there's times, of course, in life, particularly I think when you're younger and learning, where you make mistakes and you've done something that, you know, you look back and go, wow, why'd I do that? You regret it. But that's the course correcting mechanism, and that's how you learn. But I think it's quite clear. I've not struggled with that. And in the professional sense, I think, again, it's completely, if you go back to, at the end of the day, you want to be at peace. And, you know, I look at people sometimes who've, some of these really complicated situations you read about, and you go, wow, that they would so not be restful. And they almost orchestrated complexity and pain. And I'm lucky I'm not going to go there.
So have you been in a situation where your values have been tested, and what did you do about it?
Yes, I have. Many times. The best form I think you have ultimately is walking away, which is always available in the kind of world we live in. You can just say that's just not for me, or don't start. But yeah, no, I think. Do you mean in personally or in business?
Both.
Yeah.
Have you got some examples you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, when COVID hit at the NRMA and everybody listening to this who was running a business through COVID had the same issue. You know, before, if it's hard to remember that before the government stood up and said, you know, we're going to do JobKeeper and we're going to underwrite this and blah, 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 blah. Before that happened, you know, we were having crisis board meetings where you go, okay, so the airports are shut. We own a car rental company. There is no revenue. What are you going to do? And we're modelling how much cash we have in the business and how close to eating that cash will we be if COVID lasts 3 years. So you've actually got to say, okay, here's our moment. What do we protect? Do you protect the staff? Do you protect the customers and the reputation? Mm-hmm. Or do you protect the cash? And that's a really clarifying moment. And I think full marks to the NRMA. It wasn't just me, it was everyone else around the board table. So let's protect the reputation, let's protect the customers, and let's protect the staff. And we decided to do that before the government support came out. Now, some companies didn't do that and had to they made urgent decisions the other way. But what happened there, and this is an interesting phenomenon, so as COVID, faded the distance, so the NRMA's brand value went up. The NPS is 84, I think the highest in Australia. The revenue in the last 24 months was up 40%. Yep. So it's a 104-year-old mutual growing like a tech company. The membership is the highest it's ever been in 104 years. Yep. And kind of what would it have been if you'd made the other decision?
Exactly. I don't think you have to give it too much thought, because that solidified the strength of the brand and the reputation.
Yeah, which is already great, but you could have flipped a switch. And back to Warren Buffett, so it's taken 104 years to build it, and you could have torched it, but that was never going to happen with that organisation.
Those sort of situations, it obviously the good decisions made in the past have reflected the strength of today. If you turn your mind to values and the most topical discussion on AI, there are so many examples and instances where there's discussion about what AI can do, but it's not a humanising or human type of component, but values are very much human in so many ways. Is that something that challenges your thoughts and the components of how you actually can build some sort of concepts within our AI around values?
Yeah, no, I think I am a net optimist on AI. There are challenges, of course, and I'll just rattle off something. Listen on the weekend, podcast guy, and he just said, technology has always had two sides. So, and he talked about when they invented the shovel, it's going to be great for digging holes. It'll also be good for hitting somebody over the head. And AI is the same. But, there's already been the first antibiotic discovered through AI, which was a complete breakthrough in how it discovered it. There is personalisation businesses being built on education. You and I would learn very differently and the education system at the moment is reasonably standardised, a personalised AI tutor would produce a better result, in my view. So I'm really optimistic about some of these tools. They will need to be guided with, empathy and human characteristics, which they can be. And there are some good examples already. So I'm not worried about AI destroying human relationships. We will need guardrails, we'll need laws, and we need policy that avoids catastrophe. And, we will need those things. But the thing we're doing right now, Gary, is talking to each other as people. 1,000 years from now, there'll be conversations between people. Yep. And I remember reading someone said the only way human beings can really solve anything is a conversation. And if it's not solved through a conversation, it's resolved through other means which are not good.
Mm. Yes, exactly. I understand what you're saying. We've covered AI, I think, and rightly so, is going to complement society and complement humanity in more ways than I think it will destroy. Personal view. But when we're trying to build our own portfolios, presence in the environment in which we're in, we have to do that as individuals, because I don't think AI can do it. How can we articulate that? How can we help the next generation to understand that sort of aspect? Because we have a generation that is following us that listens to sound bites, that recognises that AI can do everything and shortcutting, but they fail to capture what is, I think, the most critical component is the personal interaction and how those sort of things. How can we maybe help them to get a better handle and to alert them and make them think twice about how they can capture those values? Because values are taught through families and parents, etc., on a time basis. You can't just read it and it'll happen. You've got to experience it. Have you given any thought to that perspective at all?
Sometimes, younger executives will reach out and say, can I have a cup of coffee? And I want to talk about, how I can grow my network or how I can meet some more people or something, which I understand I'm good. But I always say, what have you done to help these people? Yeah. Because, it's like, really great friend of mine was really good at marketing, and he said, if you think about it, he talked about a physical brand. He calls it's like a bank account. Like you can deposit or withdraw. So you do something that makes the brand go up in value, and then you can take something out. But if you just withdraw, there's nothing there. And sometimes I think people approach their quest to get influence of people as a withdrawal only.
Correct.
And that will never work. So if you're on LinkedIn, you're pinging someone, can I have a cup of coffee, and you have nothing to offer other than you want something from them, good luck. That's going to be hard. I mean, you might get somewhere. It's probably better than doing nothing. But if you can work out a way to help, to offer something, the amount of times that people, it always stunned me, quite frankly. If I go back to my reflection on the time as chairman of the NRMA, I was always stunned how rarely anybody actually hit my inbox with something that was of high value for my role or the NRMA. It did happen, but it wasn't often.
It's surprising.
It's incredible.
Wow.
You get hundreds of people saying, I want to have a cup of coffee, I want to do this. But it wasn't like, here is why, if you gave me 20 minutes of your time, it would be helpful for, And I go like, it intrigues me. So think about, I would be just encouraging people to be thinking about it as what are you depositing
Yep.
first so that you can have a withdrawal later, because if you're not putting something in, the chances are you just want to take something.
So it's a really good concept and way to think about how younger people need to connect. And so in terms of younger people and maybe not so young, but specifically when you were going through your career, did you have anyone that mentored you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I did. I mean, they were largely, I didn't engage them as a mentor. I didn't do that. But I had certainly worked for some amazing people who sort of took me under their wing and really helped me, really, really helped me. And it was so obvious they had your back. You know, they were trying to accelerate your progress.
Or within the organisations in which you were?
Yes.
No one external? You didn't approach anyone to ask for their guidance and direction?
I had later in my board role, yes, I did. Particularly as I became chairman, I definitely had a couple of people who I would go and ask for advice at times. They were really, really helpful people. But yeah, in my executive career, no. But I was lucky. I kind of bumped it in the organisations, if that makes sense. So I'd often have a direct line to, a direct reporting line, and then I'd have a dot to somebody else who often, it was actually the dotted line, who would come in and sort of give me air cover and advice.
Okay. And was it useful?
Incredibly useful. I mean, these are people who are lifelong friends.
Were they friends at the time?
No, they were kind of
afterwards.
Yeah, but they were just so smart and like they were light years in front of my thinking and really accelerated my thinking.
Yeah,
they're incredible people. Incredible people.
And what about now? Do you mentor any young and not so young people?
I do a little bit. It's pretty casual. I do it through some of the things I invest in, where it's effectively, you're helping the founders grow, and I enjoy that. That's fun. I mean, a lot of these things you end up talking about are it's really just pattern recognition. That you've seen most of the story before, and you're just trying to sense check. Starting a business. I've been an entrepreneur as well. Starting a business is really hard, and people, I've got great empathy for all founders. I think it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, and getting a sort of a bunch of people around you who've walked the road before is usually a pretty good idea.
Very much so. Very much so. I have over my career had many mentors, and I say many, but most of them were outside the business, not inside the business. Some were offered their support, and others I actually approached. And I think today not enough young people actually reach out to seek support and help and think they can do everything themselves, which is terrific. But sometimes it doesn't hurt to just get a sense check on where you're going and what you're doing.
For sure. That's because you're smarter than me, Gary. You did it and I didn't.
I don't think so.
But
I don't think so.
I did actually, I omitted something which I should.
Please.
When I was much younger, I was probably early 30s from memory, I did end up in a spontaneous syndicate of like-minded people, non-competitive. And it formed sort of spontaneously, really. And it was probably 15 of us. And it was incredible. It was a great group of guys, still really friendly with almost all of them. And we would meet for breakfast once a month. And it was kind of like a informal kitchen cabinet, and we would bring in, a subject like reporting up to the board, terminating a hard staff member, or some sort of conversation around the hardest job of the time. And that was kind of an informal mentor peer group. It was really powerful.
How long did that go for?
About 5 years.
Oh, okay.
It's still the people in that group I still ring. If I've got something, I would still ring them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Sounds rather unique.
It was really amazing.
As just moving on to some leadership areas in leadership, as I think I'd mentioned to you, I changed the podcast to Astute Leadership from Personal Branding Catalyst because I saw that personal branding is very much part of being an astute leader, and strong leadership comes in a variety of ways. And I wondered what your thoughts were in terms of you've been in many organisations, you've identified obviously successes and individuals to lead different businesses. Have you got some views on what good, strong leadership looks like, what astute leadership is to the marketplace, and are there areas and advice you might like to share and provide this morning?
Great question. Yes, I do. So what do you need to be a good leader? Okay. To me, and this may not be right for everyone, for me, if it's through the business lens, it's the subject du jour is find the unmet need of the future customer. That is the most interesting conversation you can have, in my view. And you need a leader who is great at that, finding the unmet need. So many organisations are going through so much change, and it's about to accelerate 1,000x as the AI revolution really hits. You will need leadership who is really good at creating an organisation that can predict its customers' needs. And if they can't, most organisations are going to get belted. So that's the first thing. And what do you need for that? Well, you need curiosity first. You know, you don't need the often wrong, never in doubt mindset is death. So you need somebody who's open to learning because everything is changing. So a serial learner is going to be a good place to start. Empathy is going to be essential. Curiosity, table stakes.
What was the third one?
Curiosity.
Empathy,
curiosity, serial learner.
Serial learner.
Yeah.
They're three good, solid pillars to have.
In fact, you know, to quote, I've been close to Microsoft. Never worked for Microsoft, but I've been in joint ventures with them, know them reasonably well. But the story of Microsoft with Satya Nadella is a fascinating story. I don't know if you've ever covered it before, but he did a lot of things. But one of the key thing was really this idea of go from know-it-all to learn-it-all. Because if you bring a know-it-all mindset, you're going to be in trouble. Because everything is changing.
Yeah. That is what we have today. And the generation that's following us are challenged in that regard.
Yeah. No, everyone's challenged. Everyone's challenged. I mentioned in my book, AI Game On, it was a Harvard Business Review article a couple of years ago now, but it was around the data analytics AI revolution. And it said, they used the word hippos, that the biggest barrier is hippos, which is highest paid person's opinion. And if the highest paid person's opinion is, we're not going to need AI for our future, that organisation has just signed a death warrant. And in my view, and so you're just going to need people who are not just AI zealots, not suggesting that, but you're going to need people who go, how can I learn more? And the words you're never going to hear, Gary, or not while I'm of working age, here's something you won't hear. We had to let Gary go because he knew too much about AI.
Yeah, no.
You're not going to hear those words.
No. But could I also suggest to you that maybe those who challenge the status quo might be let go because they might cause a significant amount of embarrassment and discomfort for the people around them?
Well, that's certainly possible. But if they're challenging the status quo for the right reasons,
yes,
and they're let go, of course, that's a sign of dysfunction.
Yes.
But if they're, it kind of takes you to an interesting place, actually.
Mm-hmm.
For those in organisation where they think they need to challenge the status quo, well, that may well be right wherever you are, but you need, evidence is helpful.
Absolute fact-based decision making.
Evidence is always helpful. Exactly. And enough evidence eventually, almost always gets through.
That is we could talk about that many, many more hours. So based on what we've just discussed on leadership, what's your style? How do you utilise some of the learnings? And obviously through your book, you give us a lot of great insights and experiences and examples. But what's your leadership style?
I try to stay as calm as I can, which I don't always achieve, but I'm conscious of that. If you're in a leadership position and you're the most agitated, that is not going to be helpful. I was always taught that leadership is removing stress, not adding to stress. So I don't think I've always got that right. But I was really, if I reflect back on people who've made a massive impact on me. So I've been on this charity board for a very long time, and it was co-founded with myself and a bunch of other Australian business people and Bob Hawke.
The
Bestest Foundation.
Bestest.
And Bob Hawke was the OG chair.
Yeah.
And Bob Hawke was just, an amazing man, formidable intellect, and he could chair a meeting like no one else I've ever seen before or since. And I learned a lot from watching how Bob did that. It was always calm, could be decisive, could put pressure on in short bursts, had unbelievable empathy, would often cross-check. I mean, he's just an incredible guy. If something happened at a meeting where, you might have been a little quieter than usual, he would ring you, like if that week, and say, "Is everything okay to you?" Like, saw you at the meeting. Just a natural-born leader. And so sometimes I try and channel a little bit of the people you've seen do it well, try and bring a little bit of that to it, and just play your own game, really.
So, in summary, how would you put your style?
Focused on the future. Evidence, if you've got it, use it. If you've got data, use it. Try and remove emotion and remove stress where possible, not always possible. And if you make a mistake, and I have made many, own it. And, the art of an apology sometimes is, a well-placed apology can be a powerful thing and often needed.
Great summation. So if someone was starting out in their career today, it's such a different world than what it was 20, 30 years ago. What would be the advice you would be giving that person for their career and their ambitions and aspirations?
Great question. Be a serial learner. Whatever skill you have today will need to be augmented with something. Be a great user of AI tools. Become known for that. Find a passion project. Find something you really care about. And I'm asthmatic. My kids, when they first born, were asthmatic. They're not, thankfully, very asthmatic now. But I remember thinking, I want to do something to help asthma. So I joined the Asthma Foundation. got on the board. This is a long time ago. But it kind of opened my eyes to, well, it's a not-for-profit. Can I help? I learnt a lot. I'm not sure if I did any good at all. Hopefully it didn't do any harm. But it opened my mind to, okay, that's something I can actually help them a little bit. That builds. Then you meet other people. So it's, back to, that was a deposit, And then what does it mean on the other side of that? Don't know. So, get active. Think about where you can help. Learn. Bring empathy. Meet people. Open the aperture on everything. Read a lot. Warren Buffett, they claim Warren Buffett reads 400 pages of newspapers every morning before he picks up the phone, okay? He's been doing that, it's circa that, right? He's been doing that for decades. Mm-hmm. His general knowledge is really high, really high. And that base load of knowledge and intellect is a formidable weapon.
Yep.
If you're watching cat videos for 3 hours a day, you might know a lot about cats, but someone will outplay you intellectually. And if you get that moment with the CEO in the lift and he goes, how was your weekend? And you have nothing to add, that will be your shot. That could have been, if you had something really interesting to add, he'll go, that's a bright young guy I just got on the lift with. Who's that? And it's those moments, you look for those moments and you need to be prepared for those moments. And it won't come without effort. You can't sugarcoat it. To this day, I drive my family mad because I'm reading the whole time. I'm learning the whole time. And I would spend more time doing that than almost anything. And I find it interesting. I don't find it chore. I hate if I can't do it. But I think it's imperative to be the serial learner.
What a great note to end on, Tim, because at the end of the day, if we don't keep learning, growing, we won't be able to make the impact both on business and community for which you've made enormous impact in both business and community, and we're very grateful for you taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you,
It's been a great pleasure to be here and talk with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please leave a 5-star review and subscribe for more episodes. And if you'd like to learn more about developing your personal brand, please visit garybrown.com.au to get in touch or grab a copy of Brand New, Brand You.